He booked a luxury suite in his own hotel and was coldly downgraded to a back room near the laundry. The receptionist, Casey, didn't even look up, treating him like just another forgettable guest. But that guest was Daniel Chang, the CEO himself, and he had a quiet plan to turn the situation upside down. Just wait until you see how this story unfolds, and why justice came back stronger than anyone expected. Rain tapped rhythmically against the windshield of a black Maserati as it rolled up to the curb in front of the New Dynasty Hotel, a luxury building nestled quietly in downtown Seattle. The man behind the wheel was sharply dressed in a tailored navy coat, his movements precise and deliberate. His name was Daniel Chang, and he wasn't just another high-end guest. He owned the hotel, but no one at the front desk knew that. Daniel had booked the room under a different name, Eric Liu, not to play games, but to conduct a silent inspection. After 2 years of expanding his Chinese hotel empire into the American market, he knew one thing better than anyone. People show their true professionalism when they believe no one is watching. Stepping inside the lobby, Daniel took a quiet breath. The interior was sleek, glass accents, warm lighting, a scent of sandalwood in the air, just as he had envisioned during construction. A tall woman stood behind the reception desk, focused on a computer screen. Her name tag read Casey. He approached calmly. "Good evening, I have a reservation. Eric Liu," he said with a courteous nod. Casey didn't look up. "One moment," she muttered. Her tone was flat, distracted. She clicked through her screen, then frowned. Says your reservation was canceled earlier today. System shows the room's been reassigned." Daniel raised an eyebrow, keeping his voice composed. "I didn't cancel anything. I have the confirmation email here, if you'd like to see it." Casey shrugged lightly, still not making eye contact. "We've been overbooked tonight, sir. It happens. I might be able to get you something near the back, next to the laundry wing. Bit smaller, no view, but hey, it's quiet." There was a long pause. Daniel looked around. A pair of other guests were being handed complimentary champagne by another staff member just a few feet away. He turned back to Casey. "Out of curiosity, do you always handle guest issues this way?" That finally got her attention. She glanced up, unsure whether he was joking or challenging her. "I mean, I'm just telling you what the system says. I don't make the booking, sir." Daniel smiled gently. "Of course. No need to worry." She nodded quickly and returned to her screen, already typing. Without another word, Daniel accepted the lesser room and walked off with his bag. He didn't complain, didn't flash a business card, didn't raise his voice. But behind that polite silence, something had shifted. Tomorrow morning, the hotel would wake up to a name they didn't recognize, and a lesson they would never forget. Morning light streamed through the tall glass windows of the New Dynasty's lobby. Everything seemed calm. Guests milled around, business people checked their phones, and a jazz instrumental played softly from hidden speakers in the ceiling. Casey sipped her coffee behind the desk, only half awake after a long shift. The night before was already a blur, just another string of travelers, complaints, system errors. She didn't even remember the face of the man she had sent to that spare room near the laundry. Then the elevator doors opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out, flanked by 2 assistants wearing subtle earpieces. His expression was calm, but unreadable. He moved through the lobby with quiet authority, not saying a word, yet everyone noticed him. Something about his presence drew attention. Heads turned, conversations paused. Casey glanced up and nearly choked on her coffee. It was him, the same man from last night. But not quite. This morning, he wasn't just a tired guest with a strange booking issue. He carried himself like someone used to being in charge. And everyone around him seemed to know exactly who he was. Everyone except her. Before she could speak, the general manager, Brian Jennings, came racing from his office. "Mr. Chang," Brian exclaimed, almost breathless. We had no idea you were arriving today," Daniel offered a polite nod. "I like to keep things spontaneous." Brian turned pale. "If you need anything at all, just let me know. We're honored to have you here." Casey froze. Her hands trembled slightly as she lowered her coffee. She watched Brian fawn over the man she had so casually dismissed just hours ago. Her mind raced. Chang. As in Daniel Chang, founder of the entire hotel chain, multi-industry investor, featured in countless business magazines. The same man who had quietly accepted the worst room in the building without protest. Casey's heart dropped. Before she could decide whether to hide or apologize, Daniel looked over at her. His eyes met hers, calm, observant, not angry, just knowing. "You're the one from last night, aren't you?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I didn't realize." "I didn't—" He raised a hand gently. "Relax. That's the point." She blinked. "I didn't come here to be treated like a CEO," he continued. "I came here to be treated like a guest." Casey opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her usual script, the practiced customer service smile, the polite deflections, all of it vanished. She felt exposed. Daniel looked at Brian. "Let's set up a staff meeting. I'd like to speak with the whole team in an hour." Brian nodded so quickly it looked like a reflex. "Absolutely." Daniel gave Casey one last glance before walking away. No raised voice, no formal complaint. Just a sentence, quiet and precise, and a message beneath it that hit harder than any reprimand. This wasn't over. It had only begun. The staff gathered in the main conference room on the mezzanine floor. Long glass walls overlooked the lobby, but the mood inside was anything but transparent. Chairs shifted, fingers tapped nervously on notepads. No one was sure what to expect. At the head of the table stood Daniel Chang. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The room was silent the moment he looked up. "I built this hotel from a sketch on a napkin in a noodle shop," he began, his voice even. "Not this building, this brand, this experience. It wasn't about chandeliers or imported linens. It was about trust." He paused, letting the words settle. Trust that no matter who walks through those doors, they'll be treated with dignity, whether they speak fluent English or broken Mandarin, whether they wear a suit or a hoodie, whether they arrive in a Rolls-Royce or on foot. Several employees shifted in their seats. Casey sat near the back, her hands clenched together on her lap, eyes down. Daniel's gaze swept the room, not judging, but observing. "Last night I walked in as a guest. I didn't use my name. I didn't ask for favors. I didn't want to test your system. I wanted to see if the culture we claim to believe in actually lives here." A beat of silence. "I was told my confirmed room was unavailable. I was offered one near the laundry. No apology, no eye contact. Just a shrug." All eyes flicked toward Casey. She didn't flinch, but her jaw tightened. "And you know what?" Daniel continued. "That wasn't the real problem. Mistakes happen. Systems fail. But what happens next? That's what defines a place." He stepped closer to the center of the room. His voice remained soft, but firmer now. "I wasn't invisible because of a system glitch. I was invisible because someone made a choice not to care. And if that happens to me, imagine what it's like for someone without influence, without a second chance." He didn't point fingers. He didn't need to. Instead, he let the silence speak for him. Then calmly he asked, "Can anyone in this room honestly say they've never made a guest feel small?" No one answered. Daniel nodded slowly. "I'm not here to punish. I'm here to rebuild. But that only happens if we start being honest, with ourselves and with the people we serve." He turned to leave, then paused by the door. "I'll be here for the next few days, not as your CEO, as your guest." And with that, he walked out, leaving the room quiet and heavier than it had ever felt. No raised voices, no dramatic exits, just a mirror and a choice. The door to the executive office opened with a gentle click. Casey stepped in cautiously, hands folded in front of her, her heart pounding in her chest. She had been summoned directly. No HR rep, no manager as buffer, just her and Daniel Chang. He sat by the wide window, looking out over the Seattle skyline. Morning fog clung to the glass like a slow-moving curtain. Without turning, he spoke. "Have a seat." She obeyed quietly, her posture stiff, as if every breath might trigger the collapse of the fragile moment. "I imagine you've had a difficult morning," Daniel said. Casey tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, sir." A pause. "I didn't bring you here to lecture," he said. "You've already heard enough from the others. I want to understand something." He turned toward her now, finally meeting her eyes. "Why do you work here?" The question caught her off guard. She blinked. "Because I need the job." "That's not what I asked." She hesitated. I have a younger sister. She's in school. Our parents aren't around. I help pay her tuition, rent. I took this job because it was steady, reliable. It's not glamorous, but it's something I can count on. Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing every word. That makes you responsible, he said. But does it make you present? She looked down. He continued, softer now. You were tired last night, I could see that. You probably didn't have time for another guest with another issue. And to you, I was just one more stranger demanding something. Casey swallowed hard. I didn't mean to be careless. I was trying to get through the shift. I thought, it didn't matter. Daniel leaned forward, elbows resting on the edge of the desk. It always matters. Those 3 words hung in the air like the quiet before a storm. You're not being judged by how perfect your day was, he added. You're judged by how you treated someone when no one else was watching. Casey's voice cracked slightly. I was wrong, and I know sorry isn't enough. Daniel didn't interrupt her. He let the weight of the moment press through naturally. You weren't hired for perfection, he said. You were hired because someone believed you had potential. I still believe that. Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. But potential means little, he added, if it's only there when it's easy. A silence settled again, not hostile, not tense, just real. Starting tomorrow, he said, you'll be shadowing one of our senior guest experience leads. You'll learn what it means to make someone feel like more than a reservation ID, and if you're open to it, I think you'll be better than before. Casey nodded, unable to hide the emotion in her face. Daniel offered a faint smile. Not warm, but honest. We don't grow from being comfortable, he said. We grow from being seen. He turned back toward the window. You're dismissed, Casey, but not written off. She stood slowly, nodded, and walked out the door. Not with fear this time, but with something deeper, a sense of responsibility, and a chance to begin again. 2 weeks had passed since the night Daniel Chang checked into his own hotel under a different name. The rain still fell in quiet streaks down the tall lobby windows, and the rhythm of city life carried on outside. But inside the new dynasty, something had changed. The shift wasn't dramatic. No banners were hung, no announcements made. But the tone in the air was different, calmer, more intentional, especially at the front desk. Casey stood there, shoulders relaxed, eyes clear, greeting each guest with a sense of presence she hadn't shown before. She didn't just check names off a list. She remembered them. She didn't just answer questions. She asked them, listened carefully, and responded like each person actually mattered. That morning, an older man arrived with no reservation. His wife had just been discharged from the hospital, and their previous hotel had overbooked. He looked tired, edges frayed. Casey didn't hesitate. Don't worry, she said, stepping around the counter to meet him. We'll figure it out together. She found a last-minute suite, sent tea up to the room, and personally followed up an hour later to make sure his wife was resting comfortably. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't watching the clock. She was doing what the job always required, but what it rarely received: care. Her coworkers noticed. The small details, the calm tone, the way guests left the desk looking lighter. Even the general manager, Brian, had commented quietly during a staff meeting. Whatever happened, it worked. Keep going. And yet, Casey hadn't forgotten how this all started. In the quiet of the break room, tucked in the corner of her locker, was a folded piece of heavy paper, a note left without a name, but unmistakable in its voice. Casey, most people wait for a second chance to look different. You made this one count, DC. She'd read it again that morning before her shift began, not for motivation, not anymore, but to remind herself of something deeper, that respect is not a performance, it's a habit. That evening, as she prepared to finish the day, a young guest approached the desk. He was nervous. First trip alone, first hotel stay without his parents. He struggled with his card, mumbled over his words. Casey leaned in gently. Hey, she said with a soft smile. You're doing great. Let's walk through it together. He looked up surprised, not at her words, but at her tone. It wasn't about being impressive. It was about being present. Daniel Chang walked through the lobby just then, unnoticed by most. He glanced at the desk, at the interaction, at the way Casey handled it with calm clarity. He didn't interrupt. He didn't nod. He just watched for a moment, then continued on, quietly satisfied. He hadn't needed to discipline her. The lesson had taught itself, and she had chosen to rise. Casey didn't see him walk by. She was too focused on helping a nervous teenager feel like he belonged. But maybe that was the real sign of change, not needing to be seen to do the right thing. The hotel hadn't just gotten better service. It had gained someone who finally understood what it meant to serve. And sometimes, that's how the most important victories arrive. Not with applause, but with peace.